Hi, my name is Rod and welcome to the Orca Boat Shop. I do repairs, restorations on small wooden boats, build new boats, and sell online lots of parts and pieces for home builders who are doing either new builds or restorations of their own. So please check us out on the website at orcaboats.ca with a link right down there in the description. Now that the inside of the deck and the inside of the hull both been glassed and have sat for 24, 36 hours now, fully cured, not fully cured, but cured enough for me to begin working. The hull primarily is done, other than cleaning up the shear edge here for when the deck will be installed and attached permanently. So all of the work now is going to move over to just the deck alone. I need to cut out the hatches fore and aft and the cockpit. So what I've done is I've determined from where the patch was on the inside where it's going to go on the outside, and I've masked off those areas. I have also determined where the cockpit pattern will go, and I know that the back of the cockpit here should be 3 inches from the back of the coaming recess portion. So I've just done a rough approximate where it's going to sit. I've run my ruler from center line to center line fore and aft and marked it on the masking tape. So I've got the masking tape on here now because when I'm going to be cutting through here with the jigsaw, as much as I'm going to use as fine a tooth blade as possible, the up pull can tear away the fiberglass matrix from the wood, causing a bit of delamination, which you can sand out, but the less I have to do of that, the better. So I'm going to start with the aft hatch here, using the center line, which is the strips down the center of the boat, marking up the center here, center forward. Probably I'm just going to put down a couple of pieces of tape to hold it. It's not going to move on me. Now I have a couple of cardboard patterns here that I've used on many boats. It's easier to trace than the paper patterns that do come with the plans. In the set of plans that come from Orca Boats, you'll get 3 patterns for different size cockpit openings, depending on the size of the boat. On narrower boats, really you're only going to be able to use the small or medium size pattern. Now you can also modify this shape if you wish. If you want more of a keyhole cockpit opening or round hole, you can modify any of this you want. Or you can, if you want a little wider in the front, you could just have it taped on center line in the back and just shift the bow portion of the pattern out by 1 inch in the center line on top of the front, and then you'll get a little bit more of a wider portion up front here if you need more room for legs or knees to get in the boat. So to cut out the hatches, I just need to drill a few small holes on the line here. The drill bit, just a couple side by side, big enough so I can get my jigsaw in. Near to close to fully cutting it out. I don't want the lid to be falling on the floor as I make that final cut. I could reach underneath and just hold it with my hand, but I don't want my hand in the way of a jigsaw. So I'm just going to be sticking some tape across top and bottom. That way when I cut it through, the lid is not going to land on the floor, because you know it will land on its edge with a big dent in it. Have it. And with those 3 openings cut out, next up will be to build the hatch lip, to which the lid will sit on and a gasket will be put into. And then I'll start to try to clean up all the edges, of course, get them all nice and smooth. And then I'll start gluing in vertical pieces of cedar, which we call the combing riser. Just using my little apron plane here, I'm going to clean up one edge, nice square. Then slightly bevel the other side. Do the second piece. Slightly bevel. Let's see how these two come together. So those two together will work. The last piece in the combing risers, and through that day and a half of putting all those pieces in, I only managed to glue my fingers to either together or to my plane or to the underside of the deck, maybe 5 or 6 times. With all of the vertical comb pieces glued in, what I have done is I have sanded inside and outside of that surface and a bit under the deck, and pre-coated all the surfaces with just bare epoxy, no glass at this point in time. The reason for that is I just like to get it in and soak the edges, make sure that it's sealed up, and especially on the underside, the very end grain of these strips just sucks up a lot of epoxy. If I put glass on there without pre-coating, the epoxy is just going to continually disappear into the end of the wood there. And I've also maybe filled a few small little gaps and cracks in here so that there's no air bubbles when the glass gets wrapped over under the deck. And as you can see now, I have just scuff sanded all of the areas so that there's a good bond for the next coat of epoxy, which will now be with some 4-ounce glass. To get the glass to conform to this compounded shape, i.e. around the cockpit plus folding down onto the deck, I'm cutting some 4-ounce glass on a diagonal, what people refer to as a bias. So diagonally across the weave of the fabric itself, we'll find that this can conform quite nicely to the compound shape. So I'll need 4 pieces, about 3 inches wide, longer than sort of half. I'm not going to try and do one piece all the way around the cockpit. I will do 2 halves inside and out. Best way to tackle this is to apply some epoxy to the surface first, and then stick the glass on. We'll pass center line on the back, tuck it in the corner there. We're going to kind of misshape it, misform it, and it will fit in that corner quite nicely. It's that corner joint between the horizontal and vertical pieces that I really want to reinforce. And again, as always, thank you very much for watching it. Hey, if you like this video, give us a thumbs up and maybe consider becoming a subscriber, because lots of videos coming out of the shop as new builds happen and restorations are undertaken.